long outstanding middle class and affordable income household projects are cleared. That itself took specifically 24,000 crores, slightly over 24,000. Till now, 4,000 housing units annually were being completed. Now 10,000 housing units are being completed every year. For the past 1 year, it has been so, and it will continue to be so. So we have aimed at completing 10,000 housing units for the next 3 to 4 years. All these are aimed at the middle class, sir. And also differential between the circle rate and agreement value rates in real estate income tax under 43, section 43 CA of the IT Act is increased from 10 to 20%, which is in favor of the middle class. This is for primary sale of residential units up to 2 crores, and consequential relief has also been provided up to 20%, and all this is being allowed for buyers of these units. Budget 21 also had a lot of provisions. I'm not getting into the detail, but I'm quite happy to share it with those members who particularly want to know about middle class, what we have done. There are quite a few things. I wouldn't want to take the time of the House on this. So Manoj Jhaji had raised a little concern saying global indices, where is India? Our position is bad. And he quoted two of them, Global Hunger Index and another inequality report. I just want to draw his attention that it's all right to quote those two. Seems like cherry picking for me, but there are others which I want to also equally highlight. And even on those two, at least on the global inequality report, the entire methodology is questionable. Because when he talks about the report talks about asset liability data being used when it is the question of the wealth of the rich, whereas when you're talking of the poor and you want to compare their level of well-being, just the liability is being taken, and bank account and other things are just being looked at only for cursory sake. So the matrix is not the same. So to take a flawed inequality report and to talk about India's position based on that is not acceptable. Whereas ease of doing World Bank report, we were in 142, now we are on 63. Access to electricity, we were on 99, today we are on 26. Global competitiveness report, World Economic Forum, we were on 71, now we are on 43. Global Innovation Index, we were on 76, now we are on 46. And all this I'm talking about 2014. Logistic Performance Index, we were on 54, today we are on 44. So I would humbly submit to our member, Manoj Jhaji, that please, yes, we have to benchmark ourselves with global standards, but take everything on board, not just one which is suitable for our narrative. Social sector budget is another issue on which Manoj Jhaji has spoken. I think this budget, particularly post the pandemic, we have taken quite a few measures so that education, particularly for children who have lost it for last 2 years because they couldn't access, have all been given one class, one TV through PM E-Vidya, and also support, financial support which is being provided for farmers belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes has been enhanced. Har Ghar Nal Se Jal, 8.7 crores, 8.7 crores is the current coverage. Of this, 5.5 crore households were provided tap water in the last 2 years itself. I mentioned this in the budget. 60,000 crore allocation has been made, and that is with an aim of covering 3.8 crore households in this year 22-23. So like this, there are several, even PM Awas Yojana. 80 lakh houses will be completed for the identified eligible beneficiaries, for which 48,000 crores is already allocated. So I just want to highlight that the social sector has not been forgotten. So there has been a lot of interest on virtual digital assets Several members spoke about it. I just want to put on the record some of the observations which will help clarify very many members who raised the questions on it. Virtual digital assets, sir, has been broadly defined to include any information or code or number or even a token providing a digital representation of value which can be generated through cryptographic means or otherwise. It's broad definition. Since virtual digital assets do not only include crypto, but also other assets such as non-fungible tokens, about which I do recall former finance minister of Bihar very often speaks about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and they can be generated in very many different ways. The definition has been kept wide and not limited to those generated through cryptographic means alone. That is, it is not limited to crypto assets alone. To clear any confusion on the matter, the central government can also notify which virtual digital asset would not be taxed as virtual digital asset. Also, it can exclude any asset which is not required to be there. So it's very clearly taking it in a very calibrated fashion. So to track the VDA transactions, TDS of 1% has been introduced, and further through the finance bill, power is sought to be delegated to CBDT to issue guidelines from time to time so that for removal of any difficulty in implementing the TDS provisions. So tax exemption limit, again a matter about middle class not being given. I think this issue has been addressed several times for the benefit of member Vijayasai Reddy who asked that question. It's very well laid out that those individuals have income of 5 lakh or less pay no income tax at all due to the rebate which is available. Even those who have income higher than the 5 lakh take a benefit of tax saving schemes and reduce their income to less than 5 lakh and pay no tax. So thus, this policy benefits a large number of middle class taxpayers. Further, I also want to say that the individuals who do not want to take benefit of tax saving schemes, exemptions of any sort, have an option which we've given in 2020 for a new concessional parallel scheme which has reduced tax rate than the old regime in which exemptions are provided. So for reduced tax rates, one can always move to this area. So also this question was raised about section 147, wherein reason to believe is the expression on which there was a lot of question raised. Reason to believe has been removed, and by this, what have you achieved is a question which some members raised. I just want to clarify on that. Reason to believe has been removed as it was leading to a lot of litigations. It has been a conscious effort, sir, to reduce litigation. However, this omission does not mean that there are no checks or on the assessing officer, power to reopen the assessments and so on. So, omitting this phrase last year, we enacted a new procedure which provides an opportunity to taxpayer to explain how he has correctly filed his tax return. So now this is more stringent and this is far more clearer, so the possibility of litigation is far lesser now. So again, I seek your indulgence. I need to go into a bit of a detail. Former Finance Minister Sri P. Chidambaram had raised a lot of questions. I'd like to respond to them one by one. Sir, he had raised this question on the capital expenditure which was mentioned in the budget. Capital expenditure, as per the BE of 21-22 of this year, is 5.54 lakh crores. And as per the RE of 21-22, the year ending now, is 6.03 lakh crores. The budget transparently actually discloses that the RE 21-22 estimates include that capital infusion which is made into Air India Asset Holding Company and loans to Air India for settlement of the past guaranteed and sundry liabilities not backed by assets, those liabilities which are not backed by assets, amounting to 51,917 crores. This was mentioned in the budget, and we have been absolutely upfront and transparent in saying, asterisks, footnotes, this 51,917 goes to Air India Asset Holding Company, which the former finance minister recognizes that I put it in the footnote, but questions as to how that become a capital expenditure, how that can be treated as capital expenditure. I'll address that, sir. But before that, as regards, therefore, the capital expenditure target which was set in the 21-22, the current year's budget estimate, sir, you have not reached the capital expenditure target. You've put this into that account, but you have not reached the target. I would like to say, sir, if I exclude this 51,917 crore, I've actually reached 5.51 lakh crores of my BE capital expenditure. I have actually reached, of the 5.54 lakh crores, I've reached 5.51 lakh crores target that is fixed, just marginally short. But then, the treatment of this 51,917 being questioned by the former finance minister is what I want to answer now. Sir, accounting principle treats loans to any CPSC or loans to states are all treated as capital expenditure. This is an accounting principle. I have not brought into it. I'm sure he would know it. It just slipped his mind. So, loans and equities to CPSCs as capital expenditure is not uncommon. For instance, and this is important, for instance, in 2011-12, Government of India made equity infusion into this very same Air India. 2011-12, Government of India made equity infusion into Air India of 1,200 crores in the RE of 2012-13 and again in BE of 13 and 14 as well. And in BE of 2013-14, again to the Air India, equity support of 6,000 crores and 5,000 crores respectively were given. वो capital expenditure था sir, तब भी वो capital expenditure है, अब भी वो capital expenditure है. To raise a question saying, how did you include this in the capital expenditure? By including it, you thought you actually not reached it, you have not met the target, but because you have not met the target, you wanted to add this, which is not to be included, was his argument. But I'm sorry, when you gave it in 11 and 12 to this very same Air India, it was capital expenditure, and I say that. And I'm saying that even now what I've given at 51,917 crore is capital expenditure. At least I've said it openly and put it in the footnote also saying I've done this. So, often these supports were provided to CPSEs, central government's public service sector undertakings, to clear their liabilities. Honorable members may be informed, but I would like to take this opportunity to say, yes, capital expenditure, the treatment as per the accounting principle is that this is capital expenditure. But it also accepts that some of these amounts, not entirely everything, but some of these amounts could be used for clearing the liabilities, including employee cost and VRS and so on, then and now. Then it was utilized for that purpose somewhat, and now it may be utilized somewhat for that purpose. So even medical benefits are also used. But when it is given to a CPSE or when it is given to a state government as loan, it is under the category of capital expenditure. So I want to make that very, very clear, sir. So the same principle holds for the second issue which Honorable former Finance Minister raised, saying you're giving 1 lakh crore to the states for them to spend on capital expenditure. They'll have to be running from pillar to post to raise this loan. I'm not exactly using the words, but he said somewhat something like this. No. Center is giving it to the states, interest-free, 50 years, saying you please use it for capital expenditure. So, through that we expect that assets will be created. So, to be clear, accountancy principle, economic principle and real terms, this is capital expenditure. Former Finance Minister, I would like to say it, he is not here, but I'm sure the message will reach him. So, please. 1 lakh crore provided to the states is being provided for states to spend on creating assets. It is interest-free.
Please sit down. Please.
It is interest-free.
Please, you continue. Please, you continue, please. You continue.
All right.
Please, you continue. Please, Anilji. Please, Anilji. I'm not allowing you. I'm not allowing you, please. Please sit down. Please sit. Please sit. Please sit. You continue.
Thank you.
Sir, nothing will go on record. Only ministers will. No, please you continue. No, please you continue. Please, Manya Mantri ji. Please you sit down. No, I will not allow. No. Manya Mantri ji, you continue, please.
Sir.
No.
This money given to the states.
No, please. Please sit down. You continue, please. You continue, please. मंत्री जी की स्पीच केवल रिकॉर्ड में जाएगी, nothing will go on record.
That we know, sir, that
this money which is being given
I will allow. No, I will try to. Please, you are a senior member. Please sit down. Please sit down. I am not allowing you. Please.
Given to the states.
No, please sit down. Please sit down. Please. No, I will not allow right now. After that, I will let her complete. No, please. No, please. Please sit down. Please sit down. Please. Let Mantri ji complete her speech. Then I can allow. Please, you continue. You continue.
Sir, the states, when they get this money for 50 years interest-free, they can spend it for their capital expenditure and create assets, and this is being given so that capital asset creation, capital expenditure, which is so required for the environment which is prevailing now, where recovery is important. We have given this so that every state gets an opportunity to participate in this infrastructure building, through which states can add to the momentum of recovery. So then, former Finance Minister also moved to talk about GDP growth rate and also the inflation. He raised an issue which he did raise, if I remember correct, even when he spoke after the budget presentations, when the discussion on the budget was happening this year. He had raised this issue then, and I have answered it then, but he's raised it again, and I wish to answer it again. Budget documents shown nominal growth rate at 11.1%, he recalled. And the CA in his interview had said something that the real growth rate would be 8% for 22-23. The chief economic advisor, yes, is part of the ministry, but his report and his assessments are normally his own. The ministry keeps that report at an arm's distance, is something which all of us know, and I'm sure the party from where he comes, and he's been finance minister, he would appreciate that point. He had raised this question, therefore, that does this mean the inflation for the next financial year is going to be only 3.1%? Now, I want to address this, sir. The government is conscious of the need to balance the imperatives of growth and also make sure India's recovery post the COVID is sustained and sustainable. And the budget reflects this commitment and outlays the way forward. But the balance that I'm talking about is, whilst giving the emphasis for growth, we are also conscious of the inflation. Now, economic survey reflects an independent assessment, as I said, of the state of the economy and also the projections for the economy. The budget of 22-23, which I presented, and with today, I suppose somewhere we'll leave the closure, we'll come to the closure of discussion on it. The budget of 22-23 is prepared based on the advanced estimates which are given in 21-22 and which gets published this time, which got published on 7th January 2022, which is the NSO publication. And we believe that we did not, and I'm very confident that we did not factor in the Omicron, which came immediately after the budget was presented, which began late January 22. Therefore, the GDP growth estimates for the next year are conservative. And I just want to highlight, Ukraine is a new factor, no doubt. Honorable Finance Minister, former Finance Minister raised that issue also. The hike, unprecedented hike in the fuel prices is also a new challenge. However, I just want to submit before the honorable members that we take a whole year's picture when we make the budget, or whole year's picture is before us when we talk of the economy, rather than reviewing it and reassessing it on a weekly basis or even on a monthly basis. So I want to highlight that fact and also say, insofar as the inflation issue is concerned, the WPI indices is the deflator. In the deflator has been very high in the current year compared to the CPI indices. CPI as in Consumer Price Index indices. We are hopeful that the WPI indices will shrink going forward, and the deflator over the real economic growth will be lower in the next financial year. But I would want to humbly recall, and I'm not sure if Member Narendra Jadhav is here, post the submission of the budget, and at that time when the House discussed the budget, I remember the intervention Sri Narendra Jadhav ji, honorable member, made about what exactly is this deflator. It's not the CPI, it's not the WPI. Then what exactly is it? It does have CPI, it does have WPI. So to reduce this whole debate to saying, are you then telling me that your inflation calculation is only at 3.1? It was a bit disappointing, coming as it did from the former finance minister. But for the record's sake, I want to quote the words of Honorable Member Narendra Jadhav talking about the deflator, the concept of deflator. And I quote here, sir. He had said at that time, I think it was on 9th February 22, Narendra Jadhav ji, I quote him, the difference between the nominal GDP growth rate and the real GDP growth rate is not the CPI inflation, nor is it the WPI inflation. The difference between the two is actually the widest measure of inflation, called the GDP deflator. And the inflation based on the GDP deflator, which is embedded in this budget of 3.1%, is perfectly feasible. Why? I'm quoting. Why? Because I have worked out for the last 5 years. Narendra Jadhav ji says, I have worked out for the last 5 years, 5 years ending pre-COVID year of 2019-20, and it turns out that the average inflation, sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
I continue, sir.
Yes.
Why? Because I have worked out for the last 5 years, 5 years ending the pre-COVID year of 1920, and it turns out that the average inflation rate based on the GDP inflator in our country is 3.15%, which is not very different from 3.1% incorporated in the present budget, unquote. So, an economist, Narendra Jadhav, member of this House, speaking on the current budget on 9th February 2022, has said this, sir, about the deflator. It might just be good for us to draw it for answering the Honorable former Finance Minister who raised that issue. Sir, he also raised, former Finance Minister also raised this question about the proportion of direct taxes and the indirect taxes as a percentage of the GDP, and he felt that because the indirect taxes proportion is higher than the direct taxes, that it is very regressive. I just want to put the facts here, sir. Yes, if indirect taxes are more than direct taxes in terms of their contribution to the GDP, it is regressive, and nobody works, at least I'm not, or none of us here, or my predecessor, Sri Arun Jaitley, none of us worked consciously to make the indirect taxes contribute more to the GDP than the direct taxes. But the facts will have to be laid before, sir. The main reason for increase in share of indirect tax, which was the case now, he conceded, I must say, former Finance Minister conceded now that it is coming to probably equal 5.1%, but ideally direct taxes should be more than the indirect taxes. I concede that. But I want to lay the facts before. The main reason for increase in share of indirect taxes, sir, is GST compensation, cess, which is a temporary arrangement. For instance, in 21-22, RE of 21-22 includes 1.05 lakh crores on account of GST compensation cess. If we exclude this amount, from indirect taxes, then the share of indirect taxes as a percentage of GDP is less than 5%. It will be at 4.97% compared to the 5.4% of the direct taxes. So direct taxes are higher. But of course, because of the compensation, which is a necessary step forward, we'll have to do it. Similarly, in BE 22-23, share of indirect taxes, sir, excluding the GST compensation, which is at 1.20 lakh crores, is estimated to be at 4.7% of GDP, which is lesser as compared to 5.5% of the direct taxes, which is for the forthcoming year from 1st April. So that point is well taken, sir. The one other point, which will be the last point on the... Quite a big one. No, because it's gone inside, yes, sir. That gadget should be kept outside rather than keeping. Sir, there was a very, which I felt a bit odd, issue that former finance minister raised, saying faith in the private sector investors is being lost. Meaning he questioned, is it that the government has lost faith in the private investors? I just want to address that because it's a very important issue and our position can be explained. The pandemic created huge uncertainties, sir, that seriously impacted private sector investments. The government stepped in to fill the gap up, and create environment necessary to revive and sustain investments from the private sector. And we believe that the government and the private sector are partners in ushering development in this economy. There is no us versus them when it comes to government versus private sector. To set up private sector investments, the government has launched PLI in 14 sectors, which is expected to add additional productive capacity of over 30 lakh crores over the next 5 years. That is a way in which private sector is also being nudged to come into, spending their money in investments. And PM Gati Shakti, sir, is also one of the transformative approach, wherein about 7 different, if I may envision that as 7 different horses leading PM Gati Shakti of growth. It will pull forward the economy, leading to huge jobs and entrepreneurial skills of people, and that will itself be a great contribution from the private sector. And I had said in the budget speech that it will only help in crowding in private sector investments. Sir, I wouldn't take more time, but there are issues which former finance minister raised, and I need to address it, particularly on the finance bill. He had commented saying, in this finance bill, there are 125 clauses, out of which 84 pertains to Income Tax Act, and then you have moved 39 government amendments with I would think, a tinge of criticism, with an element of sarcasm. He said 125 clauses, of which 84 pertain to income tax, but you're bringing in 39 amendments over it. Can anyone understand? He couldn't understand, he said, but, well, I'd like to explain it now, and hopefully you'll be able to understand it better. Sir, amendments to various tax acts are a regular feature of every finance bill. The amendments carried out taking into account the changes in trade and commerce, and you know for one, sir, that we have made a practice of tabling the budget and after that going around the country and talking with people in the intermission. And when the parliament resumes, we come back to deal with the reply and also the standing committees and the demand for grants which have been debated in the House for various departments and ministries. Then we take it up, and therefore at that stage, if we think we need to bring in amendments, we don't hesitate, and therefore this time 39 amendments. I just want to say, sir, these changes are not happening for the first time. Former finance minister would, I'm sure, remember that in Finance Act 2009, there were 117 sections, which is what he refers to as clauses, because when a bill is passed, the sections, clauses become sections. So we are talking about the same things. So where he said 125 clauses, out of which 84 pertain to income tax, you bringing 39 amendments, I just want to draw the example of Finance Act 2009. There were 117 sections, out of which 84 belong to direct taxation. Very comparable. In the Finance Acts of 2012, there were 156 sections minus 125, that was 156. Out of which 113 belong to direct taxes. So comparable, sir. So why is when this government, Modi's government presented something becomes a matter of, I don't know. So government amendments are concerned, this, so far as government amendments are concerned, sir, this is because we, as I said, consult the stakeholders, come back, and if necessary, improve on it by bringing in further amendments. That is why 39 amendments have been brought in. So moving on to the issue of charities. He said amendments are being brought in, very welcome to bring in changes, but 8 pages of amendments, he questioned that. There is a section 1023C, where amendments are done along with amendments in section 11, 12, 12A, 12AB. All these amendments cripple the charitable activity. This was an observation made by the former finance minister, that these amendments will cripple the charitable activities. They would prefer to pay tax rather than comply with these provisions. I'm sure many of the members can recall. He did say that people will say, take my tax and leave me free. But I just want to say in response, there are 2 regimes, sir, when you're dealing with the charities. One is the section 1023C. Vijay Sai Reddy Garu is here, who is a chartered accountant. He can also vouch for it. And other is the section 11 and 12. There were complexities in the 2 regimes, and as a result of which, even for a small violation, entire receipt of the taxpayer was being taxed on gross basis. There is this, whether it should be treated as gross or net. What we have done, and this was causing a lot of hardship and leading to a lot of litigation, therefore the amendments have been moved so that both the regimes are brought at par. They can be treated equally. Now, consistency has been brought into the 2 regimes. Amendments have also been moved to provide clarity in taxation. At present, there are conditions which have to be satisfied for claiming these exemptions. These conditions are not new and have been there for a long time. But there was a lack of clarity, and it is that clarity which we've brought in here. So I think what is being done now is done keeping in mind that the assessees are not put to trouble. Ambiguities don't lead to litigation. So instead of making it, as though it is crippling the trust, it's actually welcomed. In fact, during the intermission when we went around the country, people did welcome. I don't know which are the chartered accountants who have told the former minister that this is complicating, this is going to cripple, whereas chartered accountants who met me have said, welcome move, it will bring clarity. So also on the accreted income, that it is regressive and it is a burdensome provision. Now, I'm sorry, I would like to say this. For example, sir, this is about charities and hospitals. I hope members are able to keep in, following the detailed narrative that I'm giving. It's only because issues have been raised, I would want to make this. I'll take this opportunity to explain. I won't take much more time, sir. The concept of accreted income was first introduced in 2016. This year, it has been made applicable to both the regimes. For example, sir, if there is a charitable hospital which converts into a non-charitable hospital and there are no tax consequences for this conversion, the hospital will make advantage of these provisions and accumulate wealth for their personal benefit at the cost of the poor people who come to these hospitals for treatment and on whose name tax benefits are given. So, for example, there is a charitable hospital which receives donations and to be applied for as charity. It builds more and more hospitals from the donations received. The assets have been created out of public money exempted of tax. Now, it decides to convert into commercial hospital. Will it be fair, therefore, for us to leave it without, taxing them for personal gains? So that is the answer for the accreted income, which is an issue raised by the former finance minister. There are also issues about faceless assessment, which is questioned, and I think most of the taxpayers I have interacted with are very happy that the faceless assessment has now removed the element of discretion leading to corruption, and this many of them have felt should continue. And I remember Honorable Finance Minister, former Finance Minister, saying assessment units, technical units, and review units. How many units? People, assessee doesn't go from one unit to another, sir. He sits at his home, sends his reply. The system moves it to different units so that there is fairness, there is transparency, there is no discretion. So it is not a burden to the taxpayer. The system does it. Yes, there are 3 silos through which it goes. So I want to assure, sir, that there is no element of harassment of the people who are assessees. There were issues of language also, sir, but I won't take the House's time on it. So there was a very quick reference by some members on the BSNL. What have you done to BSNL? Other than what has not been done by us, or other than what was done earlier, I would just want to recall how this government under Prime Minister Modi has actually supported BSNL and kept it vibrant. So, voluntary retirement scheme received 30,000 crores from this government. For VRS, for BSNL and MTNL, 92,956 employees have benefited from it. Sovereign guarantee of 15,000 crores has been given to BSNL, MTNL for raising bonds. 15,000 crores have been given. Administrative allotment of spectrum to BSNL, which was not done earlier, for rollout of 4G services, which was not done earlier, have been done by us. 24,000 crores have been given by us for also for 5G services to be allotted on the same principle as 4G allotments. So quite a few non-core and core assets are also being reviewed for monetization. So BSNL is getting a treatment which it had not had, and as a result of which it had suffered. So I'm tempted to talk about the oil prices. The story has been said in this House earlier. Just one line will probably explain it. We are dealing with a situation which is arising out of the global war-like situation. The war has been raging for a long time. You have not raised it at that time. Now you're raising it. Absolutely untrue, sir. The disruption and a resultant increase in price of the global oil and also disruption to supply are all happening since a couple of weeks ago, and we are responding to it. Various steps have been taken by the government. But let me remind this House that taxpayers of today are paying for the subsidy which was dished out to the consumers more than a decade ago in the name of oil bonds, and they will continue to pay for the next 5 years as the redemption of the bonds continue till 2026. So that burden is also on us now for the benefits given apparently through the oil bonds raised 10 years ago. So I would like to put that on record. Allegations were made that even Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji had raised oil bonds. I just want to put the number in context. Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji's government had raised bonds. The bonds issued were for 9,000 crores, and they were one-time action rather than a continuous policy. Whereas there is a huge difference in the magnitude between 9,000 crores, which was one time, that had to be repaid on account of Vajpayee ji's government's oil bonds, and the more than 2 lakh crores, which was raised during the UPA's oil bonds, which is getting paid even now. So, funding oil at a higher cost has an honest way of doing it, and a way in which you just book it on somebody else and some other government keeps paying for it. We have not done that, sir. So I want to just highlight that, and the way in which inflation is being kept under control. There are data to prove how the pulse inflation was high, meaning dal wala, which was running to 100% above the points, and the way in which we are handling it. One last point, members not here, but I would like to say, आम आदमी पार्टी का बजट देख लीजिए, उससे अब पता चलेगा कि कैसे अच्छा बजट बनाना. Sir, जिस राज्य का, मैं किसी राज्य का कम दिखाती नहीं हूं, मगर सच बोलना है। उस बजट से अगर मैं सीखना चाहिए तो मेरा पुलिस का बजट किसी और के हाथ में रहता, मेरा डिफेंस के पास बजट कोई और भरता, और मेरे लिए किसान का कुछ भी बजट करने की आवश्यकता नहीं है। आई डोंट हैव अ फार्म बजट, आई डोंट हैव एक्सपेंडिचर ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ पुलिस, आई डोंट हैव टू टेक केयर ऑफ डिफेंस ऑफ दिस कंट्री। फिर बजट बनाना आसान है सर। और ऊपर से हम रोजाना भारत देश में जितने भी पत्रिकाएं हैं और न्यूज़पेपर हैं, उसमें फ्रंट पेज का, पूरे पेज का एडवर्टाइजमेंट नहीं करते। वो बजट का अगर वो पैसा बच जाते हैं, उस पैसा भी दिल्ली के पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल के लिए उपयोग में आता, मगर उसको भी मैं सीखना है क्या? एडवर्टाइजमेंट का अलग बजट जो जितना है उसको भी देखना चाहिए, ना कि इधर आकर के हमें लेक्चर सुनाना कि इधर से सीख लो, उधर से सीख लो, मेरा बजट देख लो। आपके बजट पुलिस का खर्च नहीं है, आर्मी का खर्च नहीं है, केंद्र सरकार देखभाल करती है आपका, किसान का बजट नहीं है, बजट अच्छा ही है सर फिर। सो थैंक यू वेरी मच सर फॉर हैविंग गिवन मी द टाइम।
थैंक यू मंत्री जी। अनिल देसाई जी।
Thank you, Vice Chairman, sir. And with all due respect to, I tried to intervene, but I could understand I was disturbing your flow and you just didn't ill. But all the same, my question was, I needed a clarification. So this is a provision of 51,000 crore, which has been taken as a capital expenditure and shown accordingly, and which was raised by Honorable former Finance Minister Chidambaram ji. I wanted to know clearance of liabilities, and that too of varied natures, which has been mentioned and even mentioned by Nirmala ji. That liabilities of varied nature, and Air India being no more state-owned company where the share of Indian government has gone down. It should have been shown in a different column. It goes into under the line of loan, and certainly not capital expenditure. Capital expenditures means creation of a tangible asset. Yes. I mean, which is absolutely not there. And one more, this thing is regarding the inflation. Regarding the inflation, what the Honorable Finance Minister has said, that CPI, that Consumer Price Index and Wholesale Price Index, the index goes back to 10 years. I mean, it is not revised. So naturally, inflation, whatever is being mentioned or whatever way it is being taken into account, that gives a false picture. And GDP, nominal GDP and real GDP definitely has a which I need clarification.
No, please. Now we move. I shall first put the no, please. I shall first put motion regarding consideration of appropriation bill 2022 to vote. The question is that appropriation bill 2022 as passed by Lok Sabha to be taken into consideration. Those in favor will say, please say aye. Those against will say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We shall now take up clause by clause consideration of the bill. The clause 2 to 4 and the schedule stand part of the bill. Those in favor will please say aye. Those against will please say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. The clause 2 to 4 and the schedule are adopted. Clause 1 enacting formula and the title stand part of the bill. Those in favor may please say aye. Those against will please say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. The clause 1 enacting formula and the title are adopted. Now, Mantri ji, that bill to be returned.
Sir, I move that the bill be returned.
The motion moved that the bill will be returned. The question is that the bill be returned. Those in favor will please say aye. Those against will please say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. The bill is returned. Now I shall put motion regarding consideration of the Finance Bill 2022 to vote. Question is that the Finance Bill 2022 is passed by the Lok Sabha to be taken into consideration. Those in favor will please say aye. Those against will please say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We shall now take up clause by clause consideration of the bill. 2 to 126 and the 1st to 9th schedules stand part of the bill. Those in favor will please say aye. Those against will please say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. The clause 2 to 126, the 1st to 9th schedules are adopted. Clause 1, the enacting formula and the title stand part of the bill. Those in favor will please say aye. Those against will please say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. The clause 1 enacting formula and the title are adopted. Now, Manya Mantri ji, to move that bill to be returned.
So I move that the bill be returned.
Motion moved that the bill be returned. The question is that the bill be returned. Those in favor will please say aye. Those against will please say no. I think ayes have it, ayes have it, ayes have it. Bill is returned. Now we will take up next bill. Sri Arjun Mund, the Constitution's Scheduled Caste and the Scheduled Tribe Order Amendment Bill 2022. Now Shri Arjun Munda to move for the consideration of Constitution Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Order Amendment Bill 2022.
आदरणीय उपसभापति महोदय, अनुसूचित जाति जनजाति आदेश संशोधन विधेयक 2022 को आज विचार में लाया जाए। इस संबंध में हमने सदन को अवगत कराया है कि सदन इस पर विचार करे। अनुसूचित जनजातियों की सूची में क्रम संख्या 3 पर सूचीबद्ध भोक्ता को विलोपित करना, अनुसूचित जनजातियों की सूची में पुरान के तौर पर नई प्रविष्टि को शामिल करना तथा अनुसूचित जनजातियों की सूची में क्रम संख्या 16 में भोक्ता देशवारी, गंजू, दौलतबंदी, पटबंदी, राउत, मझिया, खैरी को खरवार के पर्यायवाची रूप में प्रविष्ट के तौर पर शामिल करना एवं अनुसूचित जनजातियों की सूची में क्रम संख्या 24 में मुंडा के पर्यायवाची के रूप में तमड़िया को शामिल करना। यह विषय हमने प्रस्तुत किया है, इस पर चर्चा का आग्रह करता हूँ।
फर्स्ट स्पीकर, क्योंकि 1 घंटे का समय इसके लिए अलॉट हुआ है, फर्स्ट स्पीकर श्री समीर। नो मोशन मूव हो गया, माननीय मंत्री जी बोले मोशन मूव। Member desire to speak to me, so after which minister will reply. Shri Narendra Bhai Rathwa. Sorry. Naval, he is no.
उपाध्यक्ष महोदय, मुझे इस संविधान SC/ST ऑर्डर अमेंडमेंट बिल 2022 के ऊपर बोलने का मौका दिया है, इसलिए मैं आपका बहुत बहुत आभारी हूं। संविधान अनुसूचित जातियां और अनुसूचित जनजातियां आदेश संशोधन विधेयक 2022 झारखंड राज्य के संबंध में अनुसूचित जातियों की सूची में से भोक्ता समुदाय का लोप करने के लिए संविधान अनुसूचित जातियां आदेश 2050 तथा झारखंड राज्य के संबंध में अनुसूचित जनजातियों की सूचियों में कतिपय समुदायों को सम्मिलित करने के लिए संविधान अनुसूचित जनजातियां आदेश 1950 का और संशोधन करने के लिए यह विधेयक लाया गया है। मैं उसका स्वागत करता हूं। झारखंड राज्य की सिफारिशों के आधार पर संविधान अनुसूचित जातियां आदेश 1950 और संविधान अनुसूचित जातियां आदेश 1950 का संशोधन करने के लिए झारखंड राज्य के संबंध में अनुसूचित जाति जनजातियां की सूची को संशोधित करने का यह प्रस्ताव लाया गया है। संविधान अनुसूचित जातियां और अनुसूचित जनजातियां आदेश संशोधन 1950 विदेश निम्नलिखित को संशोधित करने का प्रस्ताव करता है। एक, भोक्ता समुदाय का प्रविष्ट 3 में वर्णित अनुसूचित जनजातियों की सूची से लोप करके संविधान अनुसूचित जातियां आदेश 1950 की अनुसूची के भाग छ को झारखंड। और दूसरा, महोदय, संविधान अनुसूचित जनजातियां आदेश 1950 की सूची का भाग 12वां झारखंड, जिससे निम्नलिखित को शामिल किया जा सके। 1, प्रविष्ट 16 में भोक्ता देशवारी, गंजू, दोतलबंदी, पटबंदी, राउत, महाजिया और खेरी समुदाय को शामिल करना है। पर प्रतिविष्ट 16 में भोक्ता देशवारी, जंगू, दोतलबंदी, पटवारी, राउत, माझिया, खेरी और समुदाय को अंदर शामिल करना है। प्रविष्ट 24 में तमारिया तमड़िया समुदाय को और प्रविष्ट 32 में पुरान समुदाय और विधेयक पूर्वोक्त उद्देश्यों की पूर्ति के लिए लाया गया है। महोदय, संविधान शेड्यूल कास्ट शेड्यूल ट्राइब ऑर्डर अमेंडमेंट बिल 2022 7 फरवरी 2022 को राज्यसभा में पेश किया गया था। इस विधेयक का मकसद झारखंड में भोक्ता समुदाय को अनुसूचित जाति की सूची से हटाना और वहीं की अनुसूचित जनजातियों की सूची में कुछ समुदायों को जोड़ना भी है। ऐसी मांग राज्य सरकार की ओर से बार बार उठाने के बाद भी काफी देरी हुई है। झारखंड सरकार ने अपने दिनांक 2 मार्च 2012 के पत्र के माध्यम से
शांति बनाए रखें,
यह मांग उठाई गई थी। उस दौरान हमारी यूपीए सरकार थी। हम लोगों ने इस रजिस्टर जनरल ऑफ इंडिया के समक्ष इस मामलों को भेजा गया था। इस पर तेजी से काम हुआ और 18 दिसंबर 2013 तक इस प्रस्ताव का समर्थन किया था। बाद में इसे 13 जनवरी 2014 तक राष्ट्रीय अनुसूचित जनजाति आयोग को भेजा गया था, जिसने सितंबर 2014 तक उसे मंजूरी दे दी। लेकिन इसके बाद लगातार देरी होती रही और ये भाजपा सरकार में इस कैबिनेट की मंजूरी कहीं 25 मई 16 को मिल गई थी। बाद में 14 दिसंबर 2016 को लोकसभा में एक बिल पेश किया गया था, लेकिन उसे चर्चा के लिए नहीं लिया गया था। इस तरह 2019 में लोकसभा में भंग होने के बाद बिल लैप्स हो गया था। 7 साल से बीजेपी इस मांग को अनसुना करती रही, जबकि औपचारिकताओं को पूरा करने के बाद इसमें कोई ऐसी बाधा नहीं थी। यह बात साबित करती है कि दलितों और आदिवासियों के लिए ये आपको कितनी चिंता है, ये बताता है। आज हालत यह है कि गरीबी से जुड़े रहे कमजोर तबके के लाखों लोग शिक्षा और रोजगार में अधिक से अधिक आरक्षण मांग कर रहे हैं। हमें पता है कि इस मामले में रजिस्ट्रार जनरल ऑफ इंडिया (RGI) और राष्ट्रीय अनुसूचित जनजाति आयोग (NCST) की मंजूरी में काफी समय लगता है, लेकिन जब ये काम भी हो गया तो इतनी ज्यादा प्रशासनिक स्तर पर देरी करना और कई समुदायों की परेशानियों को नजरअंदाज करना अच्छी बात नहीं है। ऐसे विधेयकों के मामले में विपक्ष कोई अवरोध नहीं डालने वाला है। हम लोग कमजोर तबकों से जुड़े मामलों में सहयोग हमेशा करते रहे हैं और करते आए हैं। आखिर में मैं यह कहना चाहूँगा कि इस मामले में सरकार अपना नजरिया बदले और इस राज्यों में ऐसी कई लंबित मांगे हैं, इन पर भी तेजी से विचार किया जाए, क्योंकि यह विधेयक केवल इस राज्य की चिंताओं को दूर करता है और इन बिल के अंदर जो समुदायों को एससी में से एसटी कैटेगरी में लाने का है, ये बिल बहुत अच्छा है, मैं उसका समर्थन भी करता हूँ। लेकिन इसके साथ साथ मैं ये भी बताना चाहूँगा कि कुछ राज्यों में माननीय मंत्री महोदय को मैं ये बताना चाहूँगा कि झारखंड के अंदर, उत्तराखंड के अंदर, हमारे गुजरात के अंदर हम आपसे मिले भी थे, तो ऐसी बहुत जातियां हैं जो कुछ ओबीसी में डाल दिया है, जो एसटी है। ऐसी झारखंड में भी और जातियां हैं, उसकी फाइल भी आपके पास आ गई है, लेकिन इस विधेयक के अंदर दूसरी ऐसी जातियां को लाया नहीं गया है। तो जो बाकी जातियां हैं उसको भी लाने का कष्ट करें और अमेंडमेंट बिल लाके जो भी ऐसी जातियों को, समुदाय को बहुत बड़ा नुकसान हो रहा है शिक्षा में, रिजर्वेशन में, नौकरियों में, तो ये भी लाने की कृपा करें। इसी बात के साथ मैं आपको धन्यवाद देते हुए समाप्त करता हूं।
धन्यवाद। इस बिल पर डिस्कशन आगे कंटिन्यू रहेगा। अब मैं स्टेटमेंट बाय मिनिस्टर श्री सर्बानंद सोनेवाल जी। कॉपी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करा दिए कर रहे हैं, ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं। यस यस यू।
Respected Vice Chairman, sir, there is a good news for the people of the country. As you all know, regarding establishment of WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine in Jamnagar, Gujarat, the Director General WHO, in the presence of Honorable Prime Minister of India, had announced the establishment of Global Center for Traditional Medicine in India on the occasion of the 5th Ayurveda Day on 13th November 2020. On 9th...
No, please. Let me...
Yes.
Please.
On 9th March 2022, the Union Cabinet approved signing and ratification of the host country agreement between the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India and the World Health Organization for the establishment of WHO GCTM to be located at Jamnagar, Gujarat. On 25th March 2022, the host country agreement has been signed by the Secretary Ayush, Government of India and Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General WHO at WHO headquarters Geneva, Switzerland, in a formal event hosted by WHO. So this is a great news for the practitioners, healers, and the stakeholders of the Ministry of Ayush as well as the Ayush industry. The traditional system of medicine has not only won the heart of the people of the country, but also has won the heart of the people of the world. This is a great achievement of the government headed by Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, and I believe this House should appreciate and especially thanks our Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji for this outstanding achievement for the people of the country. Thank you.
Mantri. Clarification. Yes. Jairam ji.
ये सब पहले छप चुका है, अखबार में आ चुका है, क्या लाने की क्या जरूरत थी ये स्टेटमेंट?
Thank you.
इसमें नई बात क्या है? स्टेटमेंट की क्या नई बात है बताइए?
आप रख Yes.
There is a small clarification cum suggestion. I am in sync with what Jairam ji said, but however, when we thank Honorable Prime Minister, we must also thank all the people who are involved in this, all the stakeholders who have been involved in this. That would have made it much more a better example for us.
Vinay mention in the statement.
No, एक साथ ही आप कर दीजिएगा. Vinay Vishwam.
I have two observations. One is that don't make it a political issue. Forget about the elections to come in many states. But still, I believe this is a good step. But I may call the House attention to the fact that Kerala is the ancestral home of traditional medicines in the country, Kerala. Yes. And Kottakkal is the place from where it has emerged and went to all over the world. Yes. So I request the government to think seriously about starting a satellite center of the center in Kerala at Kottakkal.
Thank you very much, sir. Manya Mantriji.
At the time of...
Please.
Respected Vice Chairman, sir, as you know, the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India is taking all the important aspect of Ayush, that is Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Sohadikpa, Yoga, Naturopathy and Homeopathy. So wherever we have the traditional strength and wherever there is a important aspect of its rich kind of existence, of course, Kerala has been bearing a very, very high reputation in this regard. So that is why all the part of the country has been taken into confidence, and also everyone is taking on board for the overall growth of the Ayush in the country.
Special mention, Professor Manoj Kumar Jha, please demand on the revised Central Media Accreditation Guidelines 2022.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chairman, sir. My subject line...
Please lay.
Sir, it's 100 words only.
Lay kar dijiye.
It's 100 words only. I demand to revise the Central Media Accreditation Guidelines 2022. Central Media Accreditation Guidelines were published on 7 February and it has the potential to cause harm to independent and free journalism. The new guidelines mention that the accreditation will be lost if journalists act in a manner prejudicial to the country's security, sovereignty and integrity, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, or in any relation to the contempt of court, defamation or incitement to an offense. Journalist bodies have expressed concern that these guidelines show elements of overreaching powers and hamper critical thinking. It has also been observed that false cases of national security are often filed against media.
Mohammed Abdul. Please, Manoj ji, please. ले कर दीजिए आप.
Non-partisan.
आप टाइटल पढ़ दीजिए बस उसका ले कर.
Thank you, Vice Chairman, sir. In Pudukkottai town, almost 1.5 lakh people are living, and it is the district headquarters too. An overbridge construction is pending for a long time at Tirupur railway gate.
Please lay.
Sir, it is only 50, but it is two decades demand, sir. I just want to address. It is a 2 decades demand. It is only 50 words.
Title को आप पढ़ दीजिए, please.
Long time at Tirupur railway gate. This gate is situated at the heart of the town, beside the collector office. A temple named called Muthumariyamman Kovil, which is attracts thousands of devotees from various parts of Tamil Nadu.
Dr. Kanimoji N.V. Somu.
Thank you, Chairperson, sir. Sir, I lay on the table the special mention regarding this education cess, which has not been used, 94,000 crores, which has been collected and laying just like that during the pandemic. I need kind attention on this.
श्रीमती कांता करदम जी. बस आप टाइटल पढ़ दीजिए, ले कर दीजिए. Please.
धन्यवाद सभापति महोदय. विषय है ट्रैफिक सिग्नल पर भीख मांगने वाले बच्चों के संबंध में है.
धन्यवाद.
मैं ले करती हूँ.
डॉक्टर अशोक वाजपेयी जी.
देश में बढ़ती नशाखोरी पर चिंता के संबंध में महोदय, आपने मुझे विशेष उल्लेख के माध्यम से अविलंबनीय लोक महत्व के विषय पर बोलने का अवसर दिया. इसके लिए मैं आपका आभारी हूँ. महोदय, भारत में बढ़ते ड्रग्स के अवैध
डॉक्टर वीर शिवदासन जी.
Sending here, the institutions of union government, especially public sector companies, are conducting lot of campus interviews, but we are feeling various kind of discrimination in these interviews. When we look at the number,
Thank you.
1 second, sir, 1 second.
Thank you, no.
Dr.
Santanu Sen.
Select.
Please lay. Please.